Hello everyone and welcome to our most recent live Q&A, and this week we have the wonderful Leo Orland, who is looking dashingly well, as I was just saying to Leo. He's obviously looking after himself. Welcome to the live Maven Mind with Leo Orland today. I am in the studio here in Melbourne, and I have with me for the first time in the studio Lachlan is to my side here, so he's going to be waving at me if there's any questions in the chat that I missed. So just a reminder how this live Q&A works. Watching as the audience, you should have a green button that's like a little phone, which you can phone in and ask us a question anytime live. Remember, if you phone in, you will be brought up on screen. If you don't feel like you want to join us live, please do, because it's very exciting. Anyone who's watched before knows how excited I get with a phone call. Please put your questions in the chat. Leo, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Now, look, this session is, we want to dig a bit deep into fundraising, ideology and theory versus practice. Leo, you are such a passionate and well-versed fundraiser, a fellow, I think you've got the, and it's a word I can't say. Would you like to tell everyone what kind of fellow you are?
Oh, emeritus.
That's the one. Well, and we've got quite a few people in the audience already, I can see that. So they are here to listen to you, Leo, not me go on about what I can't say. Okay, I'm going to kick things off. We've had some questions already submitted for this one, but as usual, everyone, stop me in my tracks and make a phone call. Leo, we want to talk about fundraising ideology, and one of the first questions I have here is, how do fundraising ideology and theory influence the way organisations approach their fundraising strategies?
Well, I mean, I've done a number of presentations over the years, and one of the presentations I do is called relationship fundraising / donor-centric fundraising. And at the beginning of each session, I will ask people, hands up those who believe in relationship fundraising. And just about everybody in the room puts their hands up. And then what I do is I take them through a questionnaire and I ask them to tick if they yes, I do that, yes, I do that, yes, I do that. And basically those questions or statements rather are, if you believe in fundraising, relationship fundraising, these are the kinds of practices you should be doing. At the end of that, I then ask people to raise their hands, those who can now say that they are practicing relationship fundraising, and hardly a hand goes up.
Yeah.
So there's a huge gap between what people believe in and relationship fundraising, donor-centric fundraising. The actual practice, though, does not reflect that. And I see that all the time because what people do, and they're pushed. It's not necessarily their fault. I believe it's a leadership issue.
Yeah.
But they're very much, it's about the transaction. It's about short term. It's about raising the money. It's the next appeal rather than the long term. And it's about putting the donor at the center of the organization rather. Well, we've got this appeal program. We've got a major donor program. We've got a bequest program. So it's program driven rather than donor driven. Yes.
Absolutely. So the fundraiser that's kind of out there going, I absolutely, it's my relationship fundraising is at my core, but they might know themselves that it's not being done in practice. Have you got any just real basic examples of how individual fundraisers in a mass organization in particular can make those small changes?
Well, one of the things that I look at is I ask to look at somebody's annual calendar of activity. Generally what I see is if it's a financial year, so you've got July, August, September, through to June, right? On the top. Then on the side, they will have different programs. So they'll have an appeal, major donor program, they'll have a newsletter, they'll have email, they'll have all the different activities, and then they'll build a calendar. So this month we will do this month we will do that, this month we'll do that. Well, for me, that's not donor-centric. That is program-centric. Key change for me is instead of putting programs in that left-hand column, put supporter segments.
Yeah.
And understand what is the what I call a sequential marketing of fundraising, so that whatever you do now, the next one will follow sequentially, and it's related to the donor's needs and wants, rather than, we have a Christmas appeal, we have a tax appeal coming up now, we have a Christmas appeal coming up now. And that's a radical, if you're on a 180-degree turn in thinking.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you surprise and delight's one that always comes to me, and Sophie do it brilliantly. They surprise and delight me 2 or 3 times a year. And I bet they start off by going, okay, by the end of this year, how do we want to surprise and delight our donors? And if you think of the how you're going to surprise and delight your donors, is it going to be through a card or a story, or what touch point? And then work backwards from that into the, your fundraising that you're going to be doing. Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that is very important in relation to fundraising is the way in which you say thank you and reporting back. There, I'm a big fan of Lisa Sargent. Mm-hmm. If you go to Sophie, you'll see there Lisa Sargent takes a number of thank you letters that is written by various organisations, including some organisations in Australia, and she reworks them along a different approach. And one of the things that I love about the way she says thank you in those letters is that she doesn't start by saying, thank you for a donation of. What she does is, in one of the letters, for example, she says, right now, there's a child who is living in a safe environment because of you. Thank you. The donor is the hero.
Yeah.
Not the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a reminder, everyone, you are live with me and Leo here in the Fundraising Nest studio. You can call and ask your messages. Pick Leo's brain about anything that you can unlock the secrets of how to be a passionate fundraiser, but also making sure that you put fundraising ideology and theory into practice. Leo is here to answer your questions, whether they're big or small, whether they're gnarly, or whether, jump in and make that call. If you want to put it in the chat, then we will answer your questions in the chat as well. Leo, I want to kind of jump forward to a question here in terms of how organisations adapting their fundraising theories to suit their missions, goals and donors. And I know when we connected and started doing some work together, one of the things I was that I kind of loved that that was something we shared was, if you're a bit stuck on, is our fundraising strategy needing refreshed? Where are we going with it? You should be having these annual kind of catch-ups, is putting the question to everyone in the team, what would happen if we shut our doors tonight? What would be the impact on society tomorrow if we did not exist? And working backwards from there. So is that part of is that adapting fundraising theories to suit their mission and goals?
Oh, absolutely. It's that's come up a number of times over the years for me, working with organisations where they try to work out, well, how do we communicate who we are and why we exist? And one of the ways to get to the why we exist is, well, if you didn't exist, what would be the impact on society? And if you can't answer that, then why are you there?
Yeah.
And it's a very basic question to have, to ask, I think, and helps to identify why you do what you do.
It would be an interesting one for fundraisers to almost go around every department, and just ask each person, why do we exist?
And see if you get a common answer. That's the other issue too.
Yeah. It's a real practical kind of internal thing, because I think there's a lot of fundraisers are somewhat disempowered in the fundraising strategy. Leo, who should write the fundraising strategy of an organisation?
Well, it should be the team, the fundraising team, should do that. But for me, the development of fundraising strategy should start off with understanding who you are, where you are now, before you can talk about where you want to be. And part of that is understanding that, in my experience, and I've done a number of what called fundraising audit, it's the technical term I call fundraising reviews. One of the things I find is that like 70% of the issues are internal issues, not external issues, and to be identified what those internal issues are and try to address them as well. The other thing I like is I don't know if you know Tom Collins, Good to Great.
Nope.
Oh, the Good to Great book. Oh, have you heard of BHAG?
Nope.
Big, hairy, audacious goals, called BHAG. Oh, not
Yeah,
Tom Collins. It's
I
called
love it.
Jim Collins. Sorry, it's not Tom Collins. It's Jim Collins. Good to Great. Well, somebody who did that extremely well, very successfully, is he's out of the UK. He worked with NSPCC. Does he ring a bell? Oh,
He
he's
does.
semi-retired now. Anyway, he basically worked for NSPCC, and he and the chair of the board came together and decided to set a goal of £100 million.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all this is written up, by the way, in Sophie. Again, Sophie is a huge resource there that every fundraiser should be using. And basically, the idea, and they came up with this campaign: cruelty to children must stop. Full stop. It's a full stop campaign, and they finished up raising $300 million, pounds, well, £300 million. But it was driven because it was driven by that goal to stop cruelty to children,
Yep.
abuse of children,
So that
and
blue sky thinking it can be productive.
extremely, and it gels the thing. I love, because if you look at that campaign, it follows Jim Collins's book to a T. For example, one of the things that the head of fundraising, sorry, I've forgotten his name now. He went back to the office and said to the fundraisers, "We are now going to run this campaign." And there's a group and said, "Oh, that's impossible. We can't raise that money." Jim Collins says, if you want to succeed in achieving the BHAG, you've got to get the right people on the bus. People aren't on the bus with you, so thank you. There's the exit. Go. So you've got to have the right people on the bus and move forward, and have that cause which has a very passionate, emotional tug to it.
Absolutely. So we can take inspiration from these big campaigns, and that's what it is. It's about taking inspiration and then being innovative and adding your own flavour to it, because nobody wants to imitate. As Ken Burnett says, fundraising has two eyes. They should stand for innovation and inspiration and innovation, not imitation.
I just remembered the name is Giles Pegram.
Giles. I thought it was Giles. I was like,
Yes, Giles. Yes.
Yes, another great one to follow on LinkedIn. Okay, remember, Leo is here to answer your calls. Leo has done everything. He's done leadership, he's done strategy, he's fundraising, relationship fundraising, fundraising 101, all of these things. No question is too big or too small, so please phone in if you have a question for Leo. And you know how excited I get when a phone call comes, so just phone in. It's to make me excited. Phone in or put your questions in the chat.
Can I also add to Michelle that I'll be doing a book review coming up.
Yeah, next week. Yeah.
And that's based on this book, Donors for Life. It's a practitioner's guide. It's a practitioner's guide to relationship fundraising, and it's got a foreword by Ken Burnett.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best practical books on applying the theory to practice. Is that book there? Fantastic book.
Yeah, I mean, there's real simple things. I know I have myself been just kind of delivering some relationship fundraising fundamentals. And for anyone who's listening, is like, I'm in a small organization. It's because I think that's context as well. There's real simple things like how people want to be addressed. Make sure you've got the right name and the right, especially we don't have checks in New Zealand anymore, but just because the check might come from Mr. and Mrs., if you don't understand the household dynamics, it might not come, it might be the female in the house that has has a passion for the cause. And that's the kind of information you need to be digging in and understanding your relationships with your general, the people who support you. If you don't understand the fundamental basics of who gives and why, you can't build a relationship.
I'm also a passionate believer that a fundraiser is the advocate for the donor within the organisation. They're an advocate. They
Yes.
represent the donor, and they need to make sure that the rest of the organisation understands that, but they also make sure that they act as an advocate within the organisation for the donor.
Absolutely.
Not just the organisation, but for the donor.
Yeah, giving's got to be a joyful experience, and it's the fundraiser's job to make sure that it's that joyful experience, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Oh, absolutely. And it is a joyful experience. And there's enough research now to show that. There's not more than research, evidence to show that.
We do have a comment in here. Kaz, it's so good to see you. Kaz has been one of our, she's always at our events. Thank you so much for being here again today. So important, she says, I made the mistake of once thanking the wife's husband who passed away and it did not go down too well. I mean, yeah. And, if we don't keep good kind of notes in our databases and our systems, we all need each other. And that's why we need fundraisers to stay in jobs longer.
I always think too, by the way, that when there's an issue like that ever happens, it creates an opportunity as well.
Yes.
Every problem should not be seen as a problem, but as an opportunity. How do you address that? How do you ensure you actually build a stronger relationship with that? And knowing that that's
the top
being
10,
honest,
acknowledge your mistakes and fix them. Yeah, it's amazing how many
being
mistakes.
honest with the person, saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we didn't know that. We need to address that, make sure that doesn't happen again," that sort of thing. And it's just an opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Opportunity to open all kinds of conversations.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go on to a question we have here. How important is it for fundraisers to balance theoretical knowledge with practical experience in their day-to-day work?
Well, the issue with that one, Michelle, is that assumes people know the theoretical knowledge. They don't know the theoretical knowledge, or they don't have the knowledge base, then you can't, well, it's an accident if you do apply, It's likely you're not going to apply. So I would encourage, I don't, every fundraiser should keep up to date with their knowledge and understanding. As you know, I read books.
You do, for breakfast.
I'm a passionate believer in that, passionate believer in keeping up to date on my knowledge base and understanding. And that to me is the key. If you know, then you can act. If you don't know, then how can you act?
Yes. I mean, that's one of the reasons we've introduced Freedom Friday and why we're doing events every Friday, because we know that we just want to create a space where there's actually, we're committed to Freedom Friday. We know that 2 hours on a Friday seems quite particular, but that's the base level. If your organisation says, look, yes, 5-6 hours a month, however it works, we just want that commitment to recognise that there has to be a point in our calendars, in our diaries, that is dedicated to our learning. And I think if you don't actually start scheduling this and acknowledging that this is our learning time, you don't get the opportunity to learn. They're not, you have to create it. And
you have to be, I think any profession, it doesn't matter when you're talking about fundraising, but any profession, any person who practices that profession does not keep up with their education falls behind. They're not.
I don't want a surgeon who hasn't done any training for 3 years operating on me.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's part of any profession.
Yeah.
Is the training, understanding, keeping up to date, building a knowledge base, And for
Absolutely.
me, yes, it's good to go to a conference, but I think it's more than just going to a conference. It's
It
also
is. And just in just 12 days' time or thereabout, we're having our first ever debate, our first ever live Maven debate, and that is
okay.
the topic: is training worth it? We've got Nigel Harris. We've got Nigel Harris, we've got Rebecca Skelly, and we've got Chanel Clapham. There's going to be a
Fantastic,
pro, a con, and one in the middle. I'm
fantastic.
really looking forward to our live debate, but it's such an interesting one. Is training worth it? And I, I have always said, delivering training is, I believe, only worth it. It's great that CEOs or whatever support training. Brilliant. You can go to training. That's only half the job. Ticking a box and giving people PD is one thing. If you don't allow them to action and implement what they've learned, there is no point in learning.
Oh, exactly. Oh, that's true too. Absolutely, absolutely. And leadership is a critical part of that issue. There's been some work done by in out of QUT about the role of leadership in the board in terms of the impact it has on fundraising. And it's Margaret Scott's, now Dr. Margaret Scott,
Yeah.
who's led that research. Clearly, her research shows that it's the relationship between the CEO and the chair of the board that's critical to the success of fundraising. It's an interesting piece of research, that one.
Yeah, I remember reading, but it's quite an old piece of research and nobody can kind of pin it down for me, but in 2016, it was just a one-pager read by Adrian Sargent, and he
Mm.
based it in Australia and New Zealand because it was in dollars, but he actually tried to put a monetary figure on professional development for fundraisers, and the figure was it returned $27,000 for a session of professional development was the return on investment to an organization. I would love
Okay.
to have that in more kind of solid figures because that's the language CEOs and boards talk in, isn't it? It's
Yes,
the
you're right. That is. It
um,
is. That's it.
yes. If anyone knows where that research is, please send it to me because yeah, it's
Oh, you
oh wait.
can.
Oh,
Oh, look who's there.
Leo.
Hey, Shelley.
Hi.
Oh, beautiful Shelley. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Good to see you.
Good.
welcome, Shelley. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all right. Leo's so close to my heart. I really had to call in.
She's going. Yes.
I've just started at Look Good, Feel Better, which is obviously a charity focused on anybody with cancer and helping them go through a whole lot of wellness programs to kind of refine themselves after being, obviously getting a cancer diagnosis and then kind of going through that journey, which is quite lonely and full of anxiety and all of those sorts of things. They've relied really strongly on Dry July
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of other big corporate events and have come to the realization we need to spread the risk.
Very good.
Where would you start? We do have quite a large database of program participants who have given permission to contact. But if we were going to start on a relationship journey, where would you start?
Well, you start with the donor,
Yep.
and who is the donor, and what do they look like, and what are their needs and wants are there. The two things I want to start, I'd start there, but also want to start at the organisation of, well, is the organisation ready
Mm-hmm.
for, I mean, it's one thing to have an audience that you can start to look on, but if you're not internally ready to be able to maximise that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no point. It will bring people on board and I'll just fall apart. I mean, I know you, Shelley, and I know you're very hugely competent. So, but it's that combination of making sure that you have all the pieces in place internally to be able to like the database in place, the donor journeys mapped out, all of that processes, all those processes in place before engaging the donor. Now, and oftentimes I see people go straight, oh, let's do an acquisition. Well, before you do the acquisition, have you thought through all the back end? I usually want to have 18 months plan planned out, and at least 3 months ready to go at that point. So it's all laid out and ready to go, and you've thought it through based on who your audience is, and is it appropriate for that audience, as well. So it takes a bit of work to do that. And I remember after then, my mentor used to, in his classes, fundraising classes, used to say, "How do you spell fundraising?" And he'd always start off, he'd spell fundraising HARDWORK. And it's hard work. But the effort is rewarding beyond money.
Yeah.
And Leo, can I just ask a question? I was in a similar position than that, Shelley, many years ago, where the only supporters were through this this kind of campaign that got their attention. Is there a risk that you that they won't support more than, if they're huge supporters of this campaign, will they support another ask within the organisation?
The Dry July, unfortunately, we do not get those names.
Okay.
And usually people coming on via that don't usually become committed supporters over time.
I've just been at hospice, and we did a survey, and 96% of our supporters had a direct experience. So, exactly. And I would assume with this charity, it's going to be very similar. That those that have experienced the output are the ones who are going to be the most committed and tied to it.
Yes, and you have to, as the fundraiser, you have to make their experience something that is rewarding for them. They can see the impact, and if they've had some experience, they're going to be able to see that even more clearly. I think you're in a very strong position that way. Good.
All right. Thank you.
Good luck with the new role. I keep following you, so it's good.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you so much for phoning in and asking Leo a question. We really appreciate you phoning in. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you. See you, Leo.
See you, Shelley. Bye. Lovely.
Fabulous. And I'll just check the chat. I think we have something in the chat there. We have Peter hasn't said, enjoyed hearing Leo's never-ending wisdom based on his never-ending learning, and he's had to leave early. Fam and Kaz is still there and listening to the work that Shelley is doing, and mentioned that her mum has actually been someone who has accessed look good, feel great, and it helped her. Kaz, isn't it? I mean, yeah, it's why we do what we do as well, because we often are connected in other ways to all the wonderful work that's going on in our sector. Leo's still here to take your calls. If you're in the audience, do call in. I am going to jump to an interesting one. Leo, are there any misconceptions about fundraising theories that you often encounter in the field?
I think the only one the ones that I can think of are generally related to misconception about what relationship fundraising is about, and in practice rather than in the theory. People know the theory, or to a certain extent they know some of the theory, but in practice they're far short of that. I'm just thinking of one of the misconceptions occasionally I will see from organisations is the idea that that they say, oh, we say thank you quite regularly, but my experience is that, and I'm a very strong believer in the thank you process is really critical. But my experience is oftentimes that what people say and what they do isn't the case. And I've been through the process of that mystery shopping exercise where we sent out a letter from this old lady, which I wrote. I wasn't the old, did the profile so we could hide my identity. And it surprised me, organisations that were going out there saying, we thank our donors, we practice good relationship fundraising, were terrible in terms of the way they said thank you, and the problem was that this lady had raised a number of issues. None of the issues were addressed except for one organisation, which is in St Kilda, who is it's a fantastic organisation, and Sacred Heart Mission in St Kilda, and they not only answer the questions, but the fundraiser pinned their business card to the letter, say if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. It was just, it was beyond just the standard letter. And in fact, one organisation whose show I made nameless they banked the money very quickly and never sent a thank you letter. Yeah. It's like, these are basic things, guys, basic.
It is. And I know when we had Simon Scrivo over to New Zealand for a conference I was at, he did a really live on stage, did a mystery phone call to organisations to say that he wanted, and somewhere in the audience, it was very bold and it was very brave, but he said, look, I want you all to do this. I want you to ring your own organisation and try and donate some money.
Yes.
It's
challenging.
Yes, a very interesting process to address. Like you say, if you believe that you put the donor at the heart of everything that you do, pick up the phone and make a donation to your organisation.
Well, Ken Bennett makes the very strong point in his book Relationship Fundraising, which was the first time that the relationship fundraising was expressed in written form. He makes the point that everyone in the organisation is responsible for the relationship with the donor. Everyone, not just the fundraising department, everyone. And I totally agree with that. So things like who operates the switch, the reception or accounts, whatever it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things I've noticed while I've been doing my kind of building of the fundraising nest, which is a lot of my research time has been looking at, particularly, I don't know, Australia, looking at organisations, looking at what kind of roles there are. And listen, organisations, people want a face and a name to the person who they're going to give money to. If you have on your website and to contact the fundraising team, info at, or no names, if you can put the I know the turn's high and it might be out of date, but it's better being out of date than nothing. Put a picture of your team there, put their personal email on there, put a phone number for them. There is so few organisations have their websites. If that's, we were looking at a digital world now, and we know that most people are looking at websites. Everyone in your fundraising team should have a face and be recognisable. That's what people want to see.
And that's supported also by the research done by Penelope Burke, who's written the book Thanks, and she did the first. She was one of those. Her book is one of those books that occasionally I come up with that changed my thinking 180 degrees, and that thanks to that. And one of the points she was trying to make in that book is the way we say thank you can influence the next gift, and she gives highlights of the things that, and she gives a sort of typical letter. In that letter is a phone number and a name of a person to contact. That's what Sacred Heart Mission did. There was a name. They even pinned the card with it was just wonderful,
Yeah, and I think it's in the first chapter of relationship fundraising. There's a checklist, and one of them is advertise yourself. Advertise who you are in every opportunity, whether it's your collateral, whether it's your text, whether it's your email, whether it's your website, whether it's your social media. This is the opportunity to reinforce and advertise the team, the people that are facilitating the donor.
And it's relationship, it's fundraising 101. People give to people.
Yeah. Yes, they do. And although some CEOs and leaders who don't understand it think that's a risk because it's a person, no, if that person's representing your organisation passionately, they're doing a bloody good job.
Yes.
They are. Oh,
Uh,
okay. Let's jump on to another question. We are going to wrap up in about in the next kind of 5-10 minutes, everyone. I know
yeah.
it's Friday morning and we only have a finite kind of online time. Last chance is to make a phone call. Please hit that button if you want to give Leo, ask Leo your question. If not, pop it in the chat. Okay, let's have a look at, we're going to just go into the ethics a little bit. I've got a question here that says, what are some ethical considerations that fundraisers need to keep in mind when applying fundraising theories in practice?
Well, in the ethics is really important in terms of, and we have obviously privacy laws in Australia, and I assume in New Zealand as well, and we've got also the FIA codes there. But for me, ethics is not, it's the basics. It's the basic. But I think you need to go beyond that, even more ethical. And for me, things like being totally honest, not try to, if something goes wrong, try to hide it from people. And one of the key things to building any relationship, there's a number of key things, but one of the key things is trust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do what you say you're going to do.
And be honest. Sometimes shit happens.
Yep.
And my experience, every time that has happened in my fundraising career, and I've been honest with people,
Yep.
with that, it's been amazing how people go, oh, how can we help you? What can we do to help you? Because they realize, we're dealing with human beings. We're not dealing with machines. Even machines go wrong.
Yeah.
People even go on even more.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's being honest and trustworthy.
It is. And one of the big things I think charities need to ask themselves too, and it's probably a bit controversial, but actually, because I've seen it a couple of times, are you fundraising because you need to or because you can?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, it's a real one.
Yes.
I remember the first time I come across it and being quite unsettled about it, that actually they didn't really need money, but yeah, I think that's hugely important.
It is very important. Although I'm still a believer in, for purpose organizations needing to have supporters, because you want to have people who are committed to the cause with you. So you're not just you who's committed to a cause. If the cause is important, if you answer that question we said initially, if you didn't exist, what would be the impact? You want people alongside you. You want to be alongside you, to support you, to give you, to have the same beliefs that you have and the same values that you have. And it's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely, and the evolving need of your, the people that you exist to kind of serve, evolving the need of over time, what they might need changes, and so it's all right to change the need. It doesn't have to be the same ask because they've given to that ask, and we've just got to keep asking for that same thing, even though we actually don't need that same thing anymore. That doesn't mean they're not going to give to this other thing that you now realize is needed within your organization.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to wrap up. I'm going to have one final question. Anyone in the audience, please feel free to give us one last phone call. And I've got a few questions here. I am going to ask you, we're kind of covered it actually. I'm going to find another one. Okay, what role does research play in developing effective fundraising strategies, and how can fundraisers integrate theory-driven research into their practices?
Well, there's a number of the research. Research depends on how you define the research as well. Oh, I just had a thing pop up.
Did you?
Oh, okay, hang on. No, it's asking me to reboot. Not now. Now, there's a number of research which I like. I mean, you've got research done by people like Adrian Sargent. They're into relationship fundraising. He's done a number of researches. There's been a number. One of the things that I like is research, which is practical research.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, again, talking about Lisa, I talk about Lisa Sargent, and in the Sophie, there is a piece of research which she talks about, which was based on work that she did with an Irish for-purpose organisation who looked after children, homeless children there, and she applied all the key principles of relationship fundraising and donor-centric fundraising. She applied them to a T, to a point where they, even in the creative room in her agency in New York, she had a full-size image of Mrs. Murphy, who was the typical donor of this organization, so that the creative people could see, who are you writing to? Who are you designing for? Yeah. And what she showed in this piece of research that did, it completely turned this organization, which was going down the gurgler, around, and the passionate commitment to the cause by donors through the use of relationship fundraising. And there was a practical piece of research which showed it works.
Yeah, it does work. Yeah, and unlike some other kind of, I guess, areas, relationship fundraising is something that the principles and the kind of research, it can be applied to any size of organisation, big or small, because I know especially in New Zealand, our New Zealand charities struggle with, a lot of case studies, examples are huge organisations in Australia who are a bit more kind of, and they feel overwhelmed. They're like, we can't possibly implement these kind of strategies in our RG program or whatever it is. But actually, relationship fundraising is one proven strategy that everyone can implement.
And in fact, I would argue that small organizations
do it better.
Could do better because whereas large organizations, it's like mega things. So, and in that mystery shopping exercise, there was a smaller organization that
responded.
The big ones did terrible.
Yes, absolutely. No, very, very true. Leo, it has been a delight. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for joining us today. Thank you to our audience there. We've got Kaz, and Peter has had to leave us, and thank you for phoning in. Good luck with your campaign. They look good, feel great. Leo, thank you for joining us. Next week we are then doing a Leo's book club, and the book you're reviewing next week is the one you've got just there. We will pre-record that and we will share it out in the hub next Wednesday. That'll be Leo's book club is coming back. We've had a bit of a break on that, but do jump in. Leo's previous book reviews are in the community hub or in our YouTube channel. And again, he is reviewing a book over 15 minutes, telling you why you should read this book. And books are definitely one of the best places to learn from. Thanks for joining us on this Freedom Friday, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we look forward to seeing you. Remember the live debate, our first ever head-to-head Bird Box debate. The Mavens are going to go head-to-head. We want you guys to help decide who wins the debate at the end of it. So we're very much looking forward to that. We've got Dominique Antonakis joining us in the next Maven Time Q&A. Dominique will answer all of your questions on how to write beautiful, compelling stories. Copywriter genius. Dominique Antonakis is one of our other Mavens. All right, everyone, until next time, thank you very much. Leo, as always, it's been fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
All right,
see you everyone. Bye.